hot out there. It's summer. It's July 3rd, 2016. My name's Doug Owen, and this is Blacklisted Radio. It's good to be back with you, and wow, pretty crazy week. A lot to talk about. Lots of things have taken place that have, of course, shifted the architecture of the New World Order in a lot of ways. So we're going to play catch-up, get you up to date on all the news that I found interesting this week that's worthy of this 1-hour radio program. The website dedicated to the show is blacklistedраdio.com. We have an interactive chat room there, podcast, exclusive content. When I do interviews, we usually do that exclusively for the website. Go over there, check it out. It's got everything you need to be part of the show, to support it, to help fund it, and to promote it. So you can, of course, interact. It is a conversation, a global conversation. Telephonically at 800-313-9443. You can tweet at me via Twitter by our handle BLN Radio, and you can text me 512-222-3067. So, of course, this week's been pretty bloody. Some big attacks. The ISIS bombing in Baghdad. They're saying the body count now exceeds 140 some odd people. If you've been watching the news today, the neoconservative movement, the talking heads have been trying to, use this to hype up and ramp more fear in this country and to justify, giving the Iraqi people billions upon billions, the government rather, billions upon billions of dollars worth of subsidies and contracts that go directly to the military-industrial complex in our ever expanding fight against ISIS. So there you go. That's part of the narrative. Of course, you have the terror bombing, suicide bombing at the Turkish airport that has some pretty interesting timing, considering what's happening with negotiations between Russia, Turkey, and Israel. So we'll talk about some of those. Of course, we have the Brexit freakout. I hate to say it, hate to bang my own drum, but yours truly, correct once again in that all of the hype, all of the freakout, all of the analysis that most of the mainstream and even alternative media had been promoting, most of it didn't come to fruition. Things got crazy for a day in the markets, just like Apple having a bad earnings in one of the quarters. I mean, it was this tragic thing that happened. The Brexit, of course, we've had the response. And there's a huge contingent of people that do not want this Brexit. So are they in? Are they out? It's pretty interesting. I mean, usually in Europe, if the powers that be, if the European Central infrastructure doesn't like the outcome, they just do it again, over and over again. So I guess it's notable that there is a resounding no new referendum, at least for the UK. Now other countries are now looking at what they will do there. But anyway, I wanted to get back to this negotiation between Russia, Turkey, that's been going on for, there's been a crisis since the down jet for about 7 months. Relationships were stagnant. The Turkish Stream pipeline was in doubt. The Russians had walked away from the table, but apparently during the week, Vladimir Putin, Lavrov, met with the Turks and Erdogan's government, and apparently there was an apology by the Turkish government, which is probably good enough for Putin. All right, let's get this thing done. There is a huge amount of interest in, of course, Turkey. That's why I think the U.S. and British governments really do accept quite a lot of the bull crap, quite honestly, that Erdogan puts out there, as far as extorting the Europeans with migrants, refugees, on and on and on. So the relationship is quite timid. The U.S. and Britain continue to support the Kurds, which the Turkish see as terrorists, as people in our government see as liberators. But pretty interesting. We have this one-armed Ahmed. I love the name. He's a Chechen, and he's a well-known Russian terrorist. The Russians had been trying to put Mr. One-Armed Ahmed in the U.S. and European terrorist database for quite some time, and this guy was actually allowed to basically go all over the world. The man I'm talking about is the guy that they're blaming for the Ataturk airport bombing. So his name's Chadev. He turned out to be long wanted by Russian authorities for terrorism-related offenses, but he fled to Europe, where he was granted asylum and successfully managed to escape the extradition to Russia. Of course, and this all goes back to the Ukrainian row. And basically, the European Court for Human Rights ordered Ukraine not to hand him over to Russia alongside Amnesty International because they were so freaked out about him being tortured by the Russians that they said this known terrorist who was arrested over and over and over again with weapons. He was in Belgium, he was here, he was there. I mean, there's not too many places this guy wasn't operating, and you have to assume that he was allowed to operate because he probably was part of some kind of MI6 or CIA operation that was running in the Chechen region. Most of these guys, at least the last one that became a defector and went to Syria, was U.S. trained. I'm trying to think of his name now, but just one more of these characters kind of in this narrative. It's hard to keep up with all of them, but time and time again, we see these people are U.S. trained. Just sidebarring for a moment, but I don't know if you saw the comedy SNL-esque skit with the State Department trying to explain away or to not respond officially to weapons being sold to Jordan that ended up on the Jordanian black market and being used by ISIS to shoot American and other American-friendly troops on the ground, or other NATO-friendly and probably Russian troops operating and or not operating, wink wink, or what badge they may be operating on or under. The whole snafu with the U.S. Troops wearing the female Syrian Kurd badges, which is just, it's kind of silly. It shows you how kind of disconnected. It's probably against international law to be wearing other flags of other countries, but since we're not really at war, and this isn't really a war that's being conducted in Syria on the ground now, the U.S. says that they can get away with that. It's not a big deal. Who cares? Anyway, so interesting timing that this guy would attack the airport right up into July 4th here, Independence Day, right inside of the United States of America and around the world. A big thumb, or finger rather, to Mother England, the British. So, that's what I always say. This is F the Queen Day, or tomorrow will be F the Queen. That is the notion that we can tax ourselves, that we should have a democracy or a democratic republic where you have representation, where you have the separation of church and state, which is probably the most profound aspect of that. Not having some lord or minister or god inside the government telling you to pay taxes, tributes to the king because of his royal blood. So there's a lot to be said about that. Usually if we do a show that coincides with July 4th, I talk a little bit about the Constitution and how, you're going to see the infuriating videos of people that have no idea what Independence Day is. They call it July 4th. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine. And it's not, it is July 4th, but we're actually celebrating something, and it's not the militarized police state killing in the name of the people, or the glorification of war. But that's what it becomes. So, I'm surprised that we haven't had it already, but usually when we have people shooting off fireworks in the neighborhood during the show, Chili Dog, the mascot of this broadcast, my Staffordshire terrier, she's a big, kind of lanky pit bull. That's kind of the idea. She usually goes nuts when kids start illegally. Should call the police right now. Illegally shooting fireworks in the neighborhood. We don't call the cops on the kids, and we just have to kind of deal with Chili Dog. So far, so good here, 10 minutes into the show. So anyway, I mean, I think that's worth putting out there, and you're not going to hear much about the fact that this Ahmed Chadev was a Chechen that had basically been given cover by Amnesty International. So it's worth noting out there. So briefly mentioned the Brexit freakout. A lot has been said. Okay, first you have this whirlwind, the political chaos, the economic chaos that came out of it was mostly media and government spokesperson driven. But then, of course, you have the central banks that completely, immediately intervened, and voila, it took the economy, the stock market, the New York Stock Exchange, almost every exchange out there, not just U.S., but globally, to new highs. So as much as it seemed like it was going to be gloom and doom, and we heard all the stories, George Soros shorting the market, he's betting against it, bank runs. I'm pleasantly surprised, or pleased rather, not really surprised, that we didn't have that kind of chaos. You didn't see bank runs. Gold and silver did make some huge, not huge, but substantial gains. So people that bet against the dollar, bet on gold. It's that's what it's really about. Is when somebody's winning, somebody's always losing, and the house never loses because all it's worried about, which is Wall Street, is the juice. That's the key. So, interesting enough, you have now the German Vice Chancellor offering Britain's EU citizenship, encouraging dual citizenship. The EU has other expansive plans. You may not have heard about this, but the EU is now planning, those inside Brussels, to expand the European Union into the Middle East and Africa, which isn't a shocker if you listen to the show, or anybody that has at least one finger on the pulse of geopolitics today. You have AFRICOM, that I've been talking about for probably 10 years now, and bringing that to fruition. And AFRICOM is basically militarizing Africa and providing protection for U.S. Companies doing it, and well, let's be honest, and the Chinese companies and all of the other, the wild west of raw naked capitalism that's taking place there. So, of course, there are huge, vast resources, and people, even though they, by and large, are pretty poor, they're there to be taxed, and of course, the power elite nations, superpowers, want to expand their markets, their base, their currency, their companies into just about every aspect or every place here on planet Earth. That not only gives them control to a certain extent, but it also it ensures the continued ability to feed kind of a Ponzi system that we live under. We have to have constant growth. So when you think about it academically, when you listen to the Kagans and the neoconservatives that will be probably in power for at least another 4 years if Hillary Clinton wins, that will be the road to Rhodesia. That will be the continued plan that we saw under the Bush regime, that we saw maybe somewhat stymied under Obama, but not really. things were pretty much on course and haven't drifted. I mean, I don't think that if you compare Obama maybe to somebody else like a war hawk like Hillary Clinton that has no regard for law, international law, most things legal, then and her body count continues. We talked about that last week, and it got a little bit of attention. I might bring it up, but anyway, that is the policy. So, pretty interesting piece. The latest EU foreign policy document titled "A Global Strategy for the European Union's Foreign and Security Policy" calls for an extension of the Union's influence into regions as far as Central Asia, Central Africa. So, for those out there, like Vladimir Putin, like the Chinese, that say, well, the U.S. and EU want to encircle us with democracy. That's it's in policy papers. It's not known. It's pretty public, and that is how I think the central planners today believe that they'll be able to continue to expand the U.S. empire in an age where traditional imperialism, just doesn't work. So you have economic enslavement, debt enslavement of nations, other tools, other mechanisms for controlling populations, and expanding Federal Reserve acceptance or Federal Reserve note acceptance, and central banks intervening in domestic policy. That was one of the big problems with the EU, and just ridiculous regulations that people just couldn't understand, and the austerity plan that pretty much destroyed the middle class, what was left of it, in many European nations, and empowered a political and economic class that has never had more wealth, more power, and more influence today. So, the only thing that kind of balances that is the internet. Shows like this, ones that are more impactful, and people out there like you listening that propagate some of these stories and this kind of discussion, and really reach people. And when people get a clue, when they see through the really sadly and not very extravagantly placed lies in media, then you come to a place where you can actually have a dialogue about what's really happening in the U.S. or around the world, a global understanding of how business is done. As much as you think, well, it's corrupt government and politicians in bed, with corporations. As simple as that sounds, it's exactly what it is. So, I feel bad for people out there that are traveling tomorrow. I don't know if you've heard about all of the terror concerns and warnings that have been placed, but if you're traveling tomorrow, you're probably not going to have a good experience. If you listen to Peter King, who is the chairman of the House Counterterrorism and Intelligence Subcommittee, every day in America you're going to be blown up, and you have to approach your life with this kind of understanding and acknowledgement. Live in fear. That continues to be kind of the mantra of all the news that I've consumed today. All right, so what you probably didn't know, Brexit actually coincided with India and Pakistan officially entering into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. If you're not familiar with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, don't feel bad. Most people aren't. It represents actually 2/3 of the world's population. Furthermore, its members include the world's #1 global economy, China, and it is a rival to the IMF, the World Bank, and the European Union. The New World Order as we define it here on Blacklisted Radio. All right, quick break. We'll be back with more. Join us at blacklistedradio.com.
Who is the girl wearing nothing but a smile and towel in the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway?
Well. If you can't isolate Russia, because the Russians have a huge economy and they want to be able to counter the U.S. And really, what what the central banking infrastructure, the Bank of International Settlements, and the World Bank have over Russia and other countries is that they can control their economies. And that's part of interdependence. If you've read this latest rag, Foreign Policy, you may have seen this piece about the elites needing to rise up over the dumbed down, uneducated masses. And a basic, temper tantrum about the Brexit. And he probably speaks for a lot of these entitled people that have never really held a job, that have come from money, that see this as really a threat to their future. And they want a future where they own all the stuff that they have acquired by however they've acquired it, usually by pretty, unscrupulous actions and crime and theft. So anyway, I don't want to give them a lot of credit, but or even talk about it. I mean, if you read Foreign Policy, I mean, these are the people that have this direct disconnect with a free democracy or a republic that has a voting will for the people, of the people, by the people, things that you're going to be hearing recited tomorrow quite a bit. And so they have this disgust for people like you out there that question the academics, that question the so-called experts, the economists. Economists say, 97% of economists say the Brexit's going to destroy the economy, and the people in London and the UK will be isolated. They won't be able to walk around because they'll have to have a passport to get outside of the country. It's going to be horrific. And people didn't buy it. And so that in and of itself is pretty revolutionary. That, the propaganda, that all of the efforts by those elites, people like Hillary Clinton, Obama, David Cameron, kind of the face, the political face of the Stay campaign. I mean, it's really, mud on their face, a slap in their into not just to them personally, but to their ideologies of neoliberalism. So, you have Poland now saying that if the EU tries to punish Britain, and that's what I get from reading this Foreign Policy piece, is that those in London are going to try to punish the people that have voted, the older people that keep voting for the younger, and we might see Angela Merkel sink to the EU's level and use that institution to try to economically break or to hurt the UK. So, I mean, they sound vindictive. I wouldn't be surprised. That's probably the angle that they'll go for. So, there you go. That's what's kind of happening in the world out there of geopolitics with the Brexit. Gun control, not surprising. California lawmakers actually passed unprecedented packages of gun control bills, spurred by outrage over the recent mass shootings. Of California lawmakers on Thursday sent Governor Jerry Brown a sweeping package of gun control bills, including a ban on the sale of semi-automatic rifles with detachable magazines. So that's just about all of them. Not all of them, but you know what I'm saying. Most popular brands. Let's see. Background checks for those buying ammunition. Restricting you from buying ammunition. That's something that conspiracy theorists that said the government would try to do, and you have that. New restrictions on homemade firearms. So, if you don't want to go through the government's plan, then, if you want to buy a lower, maybe a receiver, all the things from barrel to stock that you need to make a gun, probably going to be a lot harder. And, of course, none of these terrorists, these operators in any of these events from San Bernardino to Orlando built their own guns. So, just really going out there and attacking people, enthusiasts, rather than providing any kind of true solution to these terrorist operations. I mean, stop at the FBI and ask some questions as to how both of these gentlemen, well, at least we know with Omar Mateen, he was being recruited by the FBI to conduct terror operations. at least in his mind. Of course, they weren't going to really do anything. Wink, 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 wink. Just give him a remote control, a cell phone, tell him to push the button, and then arrest him. That's how some people, every so often, every 6 months or so, end up in a FBI honeypot. These guys don't look any different. But anything to justify making it harder for average law-abiding citizens to buy guns, because it's not going to deter people like Omar Mateen, who have security clearances, that work for companies like G4S, that have all of the permits necessary. I mean, even if you put people through psychological, mental evaluations, DNA tests, I mean, you could go on and on and on to find out if somebody's qualified to own a firearm. You never know what somebody's going to do, or somebody may do, with it in the future. There's just no way. There's no magic 8-ball. The government has not put one forward that would work. And if we had a magic 8-ball that decided who gets guns and who doesn't, it's like the people in the EU. Who do we have representing us? A bunch of unelected guys in Brussels. Oh, that sounds better. That sounds better than actually voting for our own free destiny, to be able to create our own laws to have lorded over us. Sounds like a horrible idea. Anyway, Supreme Court also ruled that misdemeanor domestic violence convictions are enough to lose your Second Amendment. This is something that most people won't argue against because it seems reasonable, but when you have these gotchas, all of these other reasons why you shouldn't own a firearm, because I think it is a problem. People buy firearms. A lot of times the reason they buy those, especially impassioned people, they want to kill a spouse. Hey, why do you need a gun if you don't usually use a gun? Well, maybe it's because you want to murder your spouse. There's probably a lot of that. Probably thousands of examples of people shooting each other over love or love gone wrong. So I kind of understand it. It makes sense to me, but how will it be implemented? And that's where I think a lot of gun owners and people that are advocates of Second Amendment rights see some interpretation. I do understand that most people start seeing this as reasonable, and then ultimately we know where it goes, because the rest of this bill, none of it's reasonable. Supreme Court ruling this, I can understand it. I mean, if you're not going to allow felons to vote, which doesn't make much sense to me, if you're paying taxes and you live in this country and you're bound by the laws of this nation, I don't understand why you can't vote. Not that it probably matters that much, the felon vote out there, but why not? Same thing for people that have paid their debt to society. Why shouldn't they have those rights? You get into a sticky legal constitutional battle. But so I think the best thing is to put laws forward that actually have some kind of merit and actually benefit society. At the end of the day, I hate saying that, but we want laws in this country, most of us, that make sense, that serve everyone to the best that a law can. Because a law is basically something that prohibits somebody from doing something. Every law, no matter what it is, has a guideline, a rule. It's a prohibition. So when you think about 2 million, 3 million, 4 million new laws in each and every year, that's really 3 or 4 million choices that you can't make. Like having a detachable mag. How many people have had so many detachable mags that they were able to kill 400 people by themselves? Nobody. What, you're going to kill 20 people? Oh my goodness. It is a problem. It's not good, believe you me, but people could just blow themselves up. They could buy gasoline and burn a building down and block all of the exits. There's a lot of other ways that people in this world could do harm to others. Mass stabbings happen all the time in places like China and the UK. We just had one recently here in California. So this idea that you'll have a totalitarian catch-all rule that's going to prevent terrorism or domestic violence, mass shootings, is naive. The question is, because those people will find some way to get a weapon. You know, the government has laws against marijuana. And how many people in this country smoke marijuana, even in states that it's illegal? So, laws only restrict people that recognize them and care about those laws. So if you're going to have a law, that's why I always say it should make sense, because otherwise people won't participate. People just will ignore these laws or inadvertently break them, and then we'll have people being put in jail that really shouldn't be. So, that's my take on it. Should you be able to take away this guy's right because he was convicted? I mean, if he is able to appeal that conviction, will he be able to appeal his right to own a gun? And most of those people, if they plan on killing their wife, they would probably do that before they beat her. I don't know. Anyway, some of the other ridiculous things. Christian Mingle. Have you heard about this? Forced to service the gays. Shaken down for $500,000. It sounds so redneck, the gays. To service gay people, to allow them to have accounts. And I guess there are gay Christian people, and they probably have a lot of gay websites from Grindr on where they could hook up with other people that are Christian. But Christian Mingle, it's a private business, literally has a niche of people that it's going after. It's like if you had emo dating, or they have a farmer's date. There is a farmer dating website. I forget the name of it, but it's like a farmer match. Now, I guess other people could go on there that weren't farmers or just into farmers, wanted to check out profiles. But it really gets right back to this idea. Do you have the right to refuse service to anyone? I see these signs all the time. Right to refuse service to anybody. I can refuse you service. And I think, well, why even have that sign? Because if you don't have the right to refuse service based on any of your prejudices or, just your discretion, then you don't really have that right. It's pretty ridiculous that the government is forcing private companies to open up to different groups or create a category. And the fact that they want $500,000, this story from the Washington Times kind of highlights how people are, taking advantage and trying to hit a payday. And at the same time, there is quite an attack on Christian people in this country. I mean, you can't talk about Muslims. You talk about the Jews. Woo! People don't like that at all. You're an anti-Semite. You might as well be, hanging out with Donald Trump and a bunch of other Holocaust deniers. You try to have a group that excludes other colors, races, religions, or just make fun of them. The PC police will come out and they will shame you and try to sue you and go after your sponsors. But you can attack Christians all day long. You can make fun of Jesus, and people in this country, they're fine with that. But doesn't that speak to why you don't see too many Christian people going out there and killing in the name of Jesus Christ? You just don't. You don't have that. Why, I wonder? Well, because we have not given special sacrosanct, idolatry of Jesus Christ. One of the things that's great about this country is that we do have religious freedom. And when you look at the Middle East, places like Saudi Arabia, and there's not just the Middle East, but there's plenty of cultures and places that just don't have. They want a caliphate. They want government ruled, a theocracy. They want those kind of biblical laws to be cast upon people, whether they like it or not. And that's why you have people. I think and it's not I'm not disparaging the Muslims or any other religious group out here. I mean, there's people that are Zionists, that see an ideology of a grander Israel at the behest or at the despair of everyone else. Palestinians, neighbors, allies, be damned. They see coastlines and shores as they're theirs, and that they have a religious right to it. That somehow God has given these people that are their occupants today some deed. You have a deed to this place, okay? What's my deed? Look at those tablets. Look at the tablets over there. It's mine. It's mine. I mean, that's just silliness. And so that's one of the things that I really do appreciate about this country. As much as people bag on it, and as sad as it's going to be, watching the videos of people that have no idea about what this country is or represents or what we're really celebrating. I mean, one of the things I do is I keep the Citizens Rule Book, a pocket constitution, always on my desk. And whenever I find myself bored of looking at the internet, the endless entertainment, I just go through this and I read through, jury rights, and I look at this document and think about how well it has stood the test of time. The interpretations are often very whack. The Supreme Court gave a lot of those this last week, but there's so many things to definitely think about besides the militaristic approach to the glorification of war that usually takes place. So, anyway, whether or not you think those dirty Christians should have to pay the gay Christians, alleged gay Christians that want to get on Christian Mingle, it seems like a pretty lame place to hang out anyway. I don't know. So we had, I guess, the big story. I'll just briefly mention it because some of the people in the chat room talked about Loretta Lynch and the private meeting on the jet with Bill Clinton. And we'll take your phone calls, wrap up the show, and, then that will be it. Don't go anywhere. More coming your way. It's the one and only Blacklisted Radio. There was a private jet. There was Bill Clinton. There was Loretta Lynch. Apparently, they were talking about their grandkids. Nobody buys it, but, the defenders of Hillary, the cult that worships Hillary Clinton, they don't care. They don't care about her emails. They don't care about all of the misdeeds of the Clinton Global Initiative, their foundation corruption, a great piece that we don't have the time to get into. Clinton Foundation corruption, Hillary and Bill's circle of crooks and thieves. I mean, it goes through just a list of criminals, banker, gangsters that have given money and received benefits from the global initiative through the State Department at her, during her tenure. Talk about Ukraine. We could talk about, the Libya people, Benghazi. It just shows that she's a horrible person and not very smart, and that they're willing to sacrifice people in order to justify getting budgets and approval and support for a larger agenda in Syria. Christopher Stevens and the people that died, or just a few. Of course, it's just a slap in the face to all the innocents and others that have been betrayed and now live in failed states. But people don't want to hear about that. They want to know about what happened between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton. Who knows? I'm sure a little legal ease, maybe some topics. She's recused herself, maybe. She says that she will do what the FBI tells her to do. So it's going to be interesting if the FBI makes that decision as to whether she was illegally operating email servers. You have Mr. Cotton, Senator, looking to go to the Kremlin and get the emails. We know that WikiLeaks, Ed Snowden, and probably the Russian government, who knows, may have those emails, but it's widely assumed that everybody else knew what Hillary Clinton was doing. So it's been a pretty bad snafu. That in and of itself shows how her criminality, okay, trying to cover up her, just misdeeds, has led to, the rest of the world knowing the secrets of the U.S. State Department and the CIA. I mean, and not just that, CIA operators around the world. Everybody knows who the spooks are. So that's just grossly negligent. And if you can't see that, then, who cares about what they talked about and whether or not Loretta Lynch and these elite in the State Department and under Obama will, turn a blind eye to the misdeeds of Miss Clinton. I mean, I just don't know how people can vote for her because, I know a lot of people get, conned. She's a woman. It's the first woman. It seems exciting. I mean, that's the only thing that's interesting about her. But, I mean, just countless, and that's the mind opera, the psychological media, how it works on people. They're saying she's the most qualified because she's the most worldly and understands international affairs. Well, apparently she's giving everybody else in the world a lesson on international affairs because they've been reading her email. She also sought secret info on the EU bailout plans as her son-in-law's doomed hedge fund was gambling in Greece. So, looking out for Chelsea and the baby. I get that. She's a criminal. Taking the reins of the Democratic Party. Not shocking at all. Guys, thanks so much for the time. I appreciate the support. If you want to go to blacklistеdradio.com to support the show, please do that. And I will be back next week for another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. Hope you have a great one. Enjoy yourselves. Watch out tomorrow. The police state will be in full force. So don't travel too much if you don't have to. That's my advice. And take care. I'll be back next week for another live edition.